Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
So I was expecting someone else.
Your life isn't over, it's just changed.
I feel like I'm losing everybody.
You're not supposed to be here. Oh, you disappoint me, boy.
I didn't join this show to get a new girlfriend, Daisy.
You don't talk to her that way, gringo.
He's making off with our deodorant.
You sure do ask a lot of questions for a supporting character.
And then I stuck my hand straight down his throat, grabbed the piece of the donut, threw it in the trash can. Boom.
Oh my gosh, Josiah!
I got this.
Walking fast down Grand, wishing you were here now to hold my hand. See the strangers living on the street, and this sight makes me want to weep. And I miss you, darling, yeah, I miss you, darling, I do, yeah.
Work's gonna work. Hey, man, can you stand in for her? Will you marry me?
You know, with Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Cause she's gone. Hola, Paco.
Oh, hey Lulu, can you help me find the number 2?
Oh, how about you use your own 2 eyes and find the number 2 yourself, dumb.
Whoa, looks like someone has a potty mouth.
Oh, like you weren't bitching earlier when they got the coffee order wrong. Don't whoa me, okay? You need to at this station. This is real.
This station is for upholding
rough.
the children's growth.
Oh, the children?
Yes.
F those brats.
Lulu! Eat a Snickers. Better?
Better. Dude, I think we're lost.
Not lost. I know where we're going.
This sucks.
Are you sure
Where are my friends? There they are!
Hey, do you have like a what? You know, like
A what?
A tampon? Your period doesn't have to be embarrassing. Tampax.
Ah, Felix. There you are. 2 hours to midnight and just a handful of names.
The experience in the musical has been really incredible.
This is one of the first times that we've gotten to see people flourish in this sort of new realm.
A lot of the people in the cast aren't strictly acting majors. I was blown away by their dedication and their commitment and their professionalism that they brought to the project.
It's like a family relationship, so sometimes there's those like arguments and stuff because we'll be together for like 6 hours at a time, but then like we'll come together at the end of the day and we'll just like hug it out and be ready for the next day.
It's been hard. We work roughly 16 hours a week on rehearsals. It's like 3 classes rolled up into one, but I think it's all worth it.
It's been really exciting to transition from the soundstage to the Center for the Arts. We get to be out on like a really big stage and like professional stage.
It's been stressful and it's been joyful. It's been heartbreaking and exciting.
There's something like great and energetic and raw about that experience, and especially doing it with your friends and your other classmates. It's just a phenomenal experience.
My name is Viva Valdez. I'm an actress, and this is why I create. Yeah, I think at some point, every artist in their life struggles with comparison. That's kind of something that I think is inevitable for us in our work. I think as myself, I'm very comparison-minded. There's like times where I really just kind of want to like shut down and quit. I think it makes me question whether or not I'm good enough to pursue this. And I've never ever considered myself an artist or a creator. And I think a lot of times I just don't think I'm worthy of that title almost. But really the past year I've really come to like own that side of myself that says I'm an actress and therefore I'm an artist, therefore I'm a creator. And what keeps us coming back to wanting to be artists, to wanting to create and to perform is the fact that we love it. And I think if we didn't love it, we wouldn't push forward and not keep going. If you love what you're doing and you are passionate about it and it is the only thing that lights you up, then there has to be a reason that you're doing it. And that's something that really helps me, is remembering that when I am on stage or in a film, when I'm in like my acting mode, I forget everything else that's going on in the world. I'm just there. And it's probably one of the most peaceful spots in my life. So as an actor, as an artist, if you feel that with your craft, you have a need and a love and a passion for it to keep going. So I think it's really up to us to decide, do we really love this and do we really want to keep striving for it and keep fighting for it? My name is Viva Valdez, and this is why I create.
Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
So, I was expecting someone else.
Your life isn't over, it's just changed. I feel like I'm losing everybody.
You're not supposed to be here. Oh, you disappoint me, boy.
I didn't join this show to get a new girlfriend, Daisy.
You don't talk to her that way, gringo.
He's making off with our deodorant.
You sure do ask a lot of questions for a supporting character.
All right, well, welcome. So we're about to start, and we're going to open with prayer. So I'm going to invite Father Eleuterio to come up and lead us in an opening prayer.
Can we please stand? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we always come before you to give you thanks and praise for the gift of life, the gift of vocation, the gift of your Spirit. And in a very special day today as we're gathered for the gift of Dr. Mario, who comes to share with us his experience of serving a saint. May we be attentive to your words so that we too might serve each other in the manner of our vocation as saints, so that we might continue to grow your kingdom here on earth, and through the powerful intercession of our Blessed Mother, through St. Pope John Paul II, all the angels and saints, may we listen to you this evening. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, and so I won't give too long of an introduction because I won't steal any thunder, but we're going to welcome up Dr. Mario Enzler, and he's going to tell us about his time of serving St. John Paul II. So Dr. Mario?
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure and an honor for me to meet new people, first and foremost, sharing stories, and what an amazing opportunity for me to be in a place that has the name of a saint that knew my name. And they used to call me, and we used to talk and argue, as a matter of fact, in a couple of occasions. But I need to ask that student, I need to know where you bought those pants because they're very cool and I need to buy them myself. Those are extremely, no, you, right there. Those pants are, I've never seen these kind of pants around. I like those white and blue stripes. I have to say, we start to go back to class on Monday. I think I should show up in my classes with these pants. I love those pants. And as you heard, really briefly about me, I'm still trying to understand how I arrive in academia because I am but academia, all right? And I come from the banking world. I was an investment banker for 20 years, and I'm married to an American woman. We have 5 children, age 23 down to 13. And my oldest went to Ave Maria University, and now she graduated, and she's pursuing a master in social work. And then my second one is a senior at Franciscan University. Probably some of you know Ohio. You know, there's a state called Ohio. And my third one, she's at Catholic University. She was going to come. She was going to go to University of Dallas to study math at UD, but then she changed her mind, and she came to Catholic University to study math. And then my 10th grader and my 8th graders, my wife, who's a saint, she's homeschooling them, okay? And I joined Catholic University in 2016, and I arrived in the United States in 2010. And what did I do between 2010 and 2016? Well, I lived in New Hampshire. Why did I live in New Hampshire? Very simple. My wife has a brother who's a priest in Denver, Colorado. And my father-in-law passed away all of a sudden. And my mother-in-law did not want to come to Switzerland, where we were living at that time, and she didn't want to go to Denver. And her health condition were not perfect. And so my wife said, I have to go home and take care of my mom. And I've been to New Hampshire several times. It's a beautiful state. And the logo of the state, I don't know if you know, but it's live free or die. Live free or die. Well, after having lived there for 6 years, I changed it in live, freeze, and die. Because, you know, that's how, you know, I was La Jolla, how do you say that? La Jolla. I was there this morning, and I had several meetings, and then I saw that on my car, it said it was 73 degrees. So I took a picture, and I sent it to my daughter, who's up there right now, and she, in return, she sent a picture of her thermometer in her car that says 7, okay? And she wanted to just say, okay, don't give it to me. But tonight, that's it. Nothing else to. I used to be raggedly handsome, long blonde hair, but you know, now that's a hit. You know, I'm overweight and bald, but that's okay. You know. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about a saint, but from a different perspective. You know, and who was this saint? Well, his name was Józef Karol Wojtyła, and he was born on May 18, 1920, in a small village called Wadowice. Well, to tell you how funny my relationship with the Lord is, the woman that I met in Rome, and she was studying theology, and now I've been married to her for 25 years, she's also married. She's also born. Excuse me. She's also born. I wanted to see if you are attentive. She's also married to now. She's also born on May 18. So my boss was born on May 18, and the random girl that I met in Rome, you know, there are a few girls in Rome, guys, just few, all right, also born on May 18. It was very awkward, all right? And in case some of you never learned this, in his early life, Karol went through great losses because his mom died when he was just 9 years old. And his older brother, Edmund, died when Karol was 12 years old. He also had not a daughter. He had a sister called Olga, and she died before Karol was born. And then his dad passed away when Karol was 21 years old, which means in the midst of World War II, 1941, he was alone already. He did not have anybody left in his family. As a young student, this is something that I touched with my hands, figuratively speaking. He was thrilled by three things. He was thrilled by literature, theater, and poetry. Literature, theater, and poetry. There are lots of biography out there that you can definitely spend some time if you want to know more about the saint that gave the name to your wonderful university. But in 1958, this is when it all started for him, because he says in a specific article that George Weigel found, a letter that he had written, that he began a new stage in his life because he was going to the Missouri Lakes with a group of kids, a group of students, as a matter of fact, for canoeing and camping. He loved to do outdoors activities. But when he went there, he brought with him a letter that the primate of Poland, the Archbishop of Krakow, had given to him. He did not open that letter before he went there because he didn't really want to ruin the time with the students. But he knew somehow the content of that letter. When he came back home, he actually opened the letter, and yes, he was being appointed as an auxiliary bishop of Krakow. 38 years old, he became an auxiliary bishop. Just think for a moment how much sacrifice cost him to leave the academic world, to leave his challenging engagement with the young people, to leave the great intellectual endeavor of striving to understand and to interpret the mystery of that creature which is man. But guess what? He accepted the appointment. 1978, we fast forward 20 years. 1978, he came out in the balcony of St. Peter Basilica facade right there. And he took the name of Saint Pope John Paul II. And he spoke in Italiano, and he said, please, help me with the language, and if I do mistakes, do not be afraid to correct me. Mi correggerete, he said in Italian. And since that day, it was very clear to the Italian people, because don't forget that the Pope is also the Bishop of Rome. So it was very clear since day one for the Romans that he was one of them. You know, for all the time that I spent with him, now that I'm going to hold your hands and take you in this adventure of stories, he was definitely a man of prayer. And definitely I can say without hesitation that the center of his life was entirely and solely founded on the Eucharist. And his deep faith, his confidence in God's help, and his fully surrender in the maternal help of the Blessed Virgin Mary are three elements that allowed him to be successful. You know, to be a pope is not an average job. Let's be realistic. Actually, to be more specific and technical, is not a job. You know, it's not that you apply to become a pope. You know, like that gentleman said, I'm going to cut my hair, I'm going to apply, send my resume, maybe I'm going to become the new pope. It doesn't work like that, okay? You are actually called to do it. And trust me when I say that being pope is also not an easy position. Because the world closely watches us and analyzes every move that the Pope makes, every word that the Pope speaks. Everybody judges the Pope based on his or her own perspective and agenda. In other words, my dear friend, standing in the fisherman's shoes, it's all-consuming. And my sense, for having lived in the Vatican, is that none of the cardinals actually wants to become Pope. There isn't one cardinal that buys a one-way ticket to go to Rome for a conclave. Not because they don't want to jink it, but really because they don't want it. It's much easier to be a cardinal with the freedom that is entitled being a cardinal than to be a pope. A friend once explained to me that the reason why the Pope changes his name, have you ever thought about it? They change their names, you know. Joseph Karol Wojtyła, John Paul II. Albino Luciani, John Paul I. You know, Joseph Ratzinger, Benedict XVI. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Francis, okay? The reason why they change their name, it's not because it's cool. Because otherwise, you can change your name. What's your name? Karen, Rebecca. From tomorrow, Rebecca. Okay, from tomorrow, Rebecca, okay? No, it's not because it's cool, but because their previous life is over. Their previous life is over. As Jesus told Peter in John 21, verses 18, and I quote, "He will be taken where he does not wish to go." End of quote. I arrived in the Vatican as a young Swiss guard with a largely secular understanding of Catholicism, which was my parents' fate, but not truly my own. And this outsider view was helpful and deceiving at the same time. In fact, I was able to meet John Paul II without any preconceived notion. His impression on me was not filtered through my perceptions of his office, for instance, but purely based on a human level. But how did I arrive in the Vatican? Well, first of all, to be a Swiss guard, you have to be Swiss, right? And Switzerland is not Sweden. Let's be realistic. Switzerland is not Sweden. What's the capital of Switzerland, Rebecca? Not Stockholm, okay? It's Bern, okay? And in order to become a Swiss guard, you have to be Swiss citizen. You have to speak the Swiss languages, that there are 3 of them, okay? You have to have definitely a clean background check. You have to be handsome, but that's, you know. But you have to actually apply to become a Swiss guard. And then you have to go through training, and you have to successfully pass all of those training. Well, my life, my story is a little bit different because I was not born in Switzerland and raised in Switzerland. I was born and raised in Italy, in the northern part of Italy. Why? Because my mom is Italian, and my dad is Swiss, and my dad was transferred from Switzerland to Italy for a job. He met my mom in Milano, northern part of Italy, in the 60s, and then they got married, and my dad did not want to leave Italy, also because my mom did not want to go and live in Switzerland where they melt the cheese rather than eating the solid cheese. And so I was born in Milano, the capital of fashion, capital of technology, all right? And I was a single child, and studying, it came, I don't know, easy, a secret, guys. My undergraduate and my graduate studies, I always went in every single class where 7, 8 were girls. Because I thought, they're going to work. I'm going to try to convince them to help me because, you know, I'm an innocent guy. And obviously, the reason that there are 7, 8 girls is because they are much smarter than we are, which means that's the class where I want to be, because I want to be with the smart people, not with the dude. You look like a dude. Yeah, it's all right. But anyway, so I went through university, undergraduate and graduate, and because somehow the Lord gave me an easy way of understanding, I was able to finish my doctorate at the age of 24. Also, my mom, I was definitely not a phlegmatic, melancholic kind of guy, more of a sanguine, choleric kind of guy. And so I entered 3rd grade, and I was only 5 years old, all right? So I was a little bit in advance, okay? But I was not as geek as the RA that I met tonight down there. I was a simple guy, all right? But when I finished with my doctorate, oh, by the way, I have a doctorate in music, okay? My undergraduate degree is in classics, and then I was a trumpeter that I was playing trumpet at the Teatro alla Scala in Milano. And so I was in pursuit of my dream. I wanted to be an artist. And at that time, because I was also starving to death, because when you are an artist, there is absolutely no money, because I was raggedly handsome with long blonde hair, I was also making some side money, walking up and down stages wearing clothes of people like Armani and Valentino. You know, they were paying me because I was tall, I was shaped well, and that was the time in my life that my girlfriend at that time, she's currently married to the former president of France. Her name is Carla Bruni. I was dating Carla Bruni. And at that time, for you young guys, you have no idea who Carla Bruni is, but for some of my age, yes, we know who Carla Bruni is, as well as the friends that Carla Bruni introduced me to, like Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelisti, all of those girls, I was in the midst of them. So now you can place me in a nice environment, really safe, right? Definitely. Wearing Speedos, going up and down stages, having people paying me to wear Speedos simply because Valentino was across my hiney on the back, okay? Okay. Oh, well, we do whatever we can, okay, to make some money. But my dad didn't really support my idea. And so, in an occasion, he said, Mario, I think that your heart is telling you that you're going to live here until you're 38 or 39. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to live here. You better come up with something concrete, because otherwise I'll tell you something concrete and you are going to actually do it. I didn't want to disappoint my dad. And so I said to my dad, okay, so what is that you think? You know, I studied classics. At the same time, I went in pursuit of music. I have my DMA. I am an adjunct trumpeter at the La Scala. I make a living, you know. I'm not contributing with the utilities at home because you never ask. I drive your car, but I never fill it because you never ask. I don't load the dishwasher because we don't have one. Okay? So what is that you want me to do? And my dad said, well, you need a structure. And I believe that for a guy like you, a structure should be an army. I want you to join an army. And because you're born in Italy and you have Italian citizenship, but because I am Swiss and you also have Swiss citizenship, I think you should consider joining either the Swiss army or the Italian army. I said, okay, Swiss army or Italian army, okay. And my dad says, keep in mind that if you join the Swiss army, you're going to lose the Italian army passport. And if you join the Italian army, you're going to lose the Swiss army passport. There was no reciprocity between the two countries at that time. The moment that you serve one country, you will then lose the privilege of the citizenship of the other country. And then my dad also said, by the way, the Swiss army boot camp, it's 17 weeks long. And the Italian army boot camps is 54 week longs. You know, I thought for a moment, I don't need a passport to show my Italianity. I speak with my hands. I'm loud. I love parsley everywhere. I don't need to, you know. Besides, 17 is definitely shorter than 54. And so I joined the Swiss Army. I left Milano and I arrived in Montreux on a train, French-speaking part of Switzerland. And that day, I will never forget. I got off the train, I had my Armani jeans on, my Clark, you know, the shoes that you think that they were just invented. We've been wearing them since the 60s. The Clark shoes, okay? I had my Clark, I had a jacket, corduroy jacket, my Rolex. I was ready to go to army. Well, the guy that picked me up looked like he had just come through Full Metal Jacket, that movie, you know, terrifying movie. He saw me, he took his pocket knife, I kid you not. He went behind me, he grabbed my ponytail, track! He cut almost a foot of my hair off, right there. I went into a state of shock. I said, what did just happen? He pushed me into a wagon. The wagon started climbing a mountain, leaving civilization behind me. After 25 minutes, we arrived in a place where the mountain was a little flat. The mountain opened, like if Moses divided the water. The mountain opened. We went into the mountain closed. We went into a wagon. The wagon started going like the love tunnel, you know. Yeah, but there was no love there. The mountain was getting closer and closer and closer, and all of a sudden, a town in the mountain. I thought, this is where they did Goldfinger, for crying out loud, the 007 movie. You probably never seen it, but there is a scene that James Bond arrives and there is a town under the mountain. There were like 2,000 people living like little ants in the mountain. They put me in a room that was 12 feet by 14 feet with 36 men. Can you imagine, girls? 36 boys in the same room, triple bunk bed. I went on the top of the bunk bed, which means that for 17 weeks, I slept in an MRI machine. You know, I couldn't turn left or right. It was brutal. And the first week, for the guys here, for the real guys here, the first week, they said, oh, we are going shooting tomorrow. You know, the only thing I had shot was my BB gun for the squirrel. I went there, they gave me a rifle that was almost, 6 feet long. They put it, I went down there, and they said, be careful, this is a .50 caliber. Didn't really mean much to me. I put it on my shoulder, I pulled the trigger, my right shoulder left my body. Came back 3 weeks later, for crying out loud. To tell you how crazy the Swiss people are, they even have a navy. There is no ocean in Switzerland. How can you have a navy if there is no water? Unbelievable. When I was there, beside, a few nice words toward my dad, that he knew all of this in advance, obviously, I needed a way out. After 6 weeks, I needed a way out. And so I remember that I was Roman Catholic because the little medal that I had said Rom Cat. And so I went to my CO, commanding officer, and I said, if my mom finds out that for the past 6 Sundays I missed Mass, she's going to come all the way here from Milano, and we are all going to be in trouble. And the CO says, oh, there is no problem. You tell me which church you want to go, and tomorrow morning, Sunday, 7 a.m., as long as you have your going out uniform, somebody will be there to take you. Perfect. I had my plan. 7 o'clock, 6:59, ready, polished shoes, beautiful uniform, $20, equivalent 120 Swiss francs, $20 in my pocket. I'm gonna give it to the driver. The driver is gonna park where I want, and I'm gonna go around Montreux for 2 hours, and I'm gonna commit crime. I'm gonna go wherever I can. Anything that is sinful, I'm gonna do it more. Cubic. I gotta do it. But the Lord didn't really like my sentiment. And so with huge surprise, at 7:01, the gentleman that showed up to drive me down was not an insignificant soldier as I was. He was a major. I thought, oh, gee, this is going to cost me more than $20. And on our way down, you know, I was trying to come up with an alternative plan. But this is for the ladies in the room. God, when he made the man, he made us simple creature. If nothing comes in our brain within the first 3 seconds, nothing comes! That's why my wife says, you have nothing to say? No, I have nothing to say. Nothing comes. Nothing. We can go down something extremely sophisticated, but the practical things, that's why every time we bought a furniture at IKEA, my wife assembled it. Because what the heck is all of this? So while I was trying to ponder to come up with something, the gentleman drove me downtown, and we arrived to a church, Saint Martin de Tours. And with much surprise, instead of, you know, keep going or stop and let me out, he went around the church, and then he stopped the RV, the Jeep, nose to a small door, and then he made a sign like, follow me. So I got out of the car. He takes a key out, opens the little door, and I'm thinking, he has a key. What the heck? And then he opens the door. We go in, sacristy. Beautiful armoire, still smell of incense of the previous mass. And all of a sudden, he starts taking his uniforms off. And then he puts an alb on. And then he puts a stole on. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? What's happening? Well, he was, yes, a major, but he was also a Catholic priest. He was the chaplain. I didn't recognize, you know, the element on his jacket. So this dude, instead of being around Montreux committing crimes, ended up being the lecturer, the altar server, and if that was not enough, they were starting 40-hour devotion adoration. So I ended up doing 1 hour of adoration on my knees with the turibol, singing Tantum Ergo or Salutaris Ostia. I did it all! Left the church, back into the Jeep, up the mountain. I was completely empty. I had absolutely nothing left on me because I was so angry that what I wanted to do did not come through. And when he dropped me in front of where the mountain opens, he says, Mario, you know, I looked at your file. I think you should seriously consider joining the Swiss Guards. And I looked at him at that point, and I said, listen, major, father, whatever suffix you want me to use, I don't care. Do you seriously see me dressed as a clown? Standing still in the cobblestone of Rome, hanging on a spear, but worst of all, without talking to anybody. And he says, well, Mario, you actually described just a little bit of what it means to be a Swiss Guard. But the truth is, Mario, that the Swiss Guard, for more than 500 years, they've been carrying, okay, they've been carrying a noble title. And that noble title, it's 3 Latin words. Remember, I'm a classics undergrad. So when he said Latin words, he said, okay, throw me the 3 words. Defensores libertatis ecclesiae. protectors of the church's freedom. When he said these three words, using a Facebook language, I got poked. What is this about? Wait a second, the church is not free? We have to protect the free? What the heck is this? This sounds intriguing. I never thought about that. And that's how I joined the Swiss Guard. I joined the Swiss Guard because I was intrigued by this concept of protecting its freedom. St. Pope John Paul II, one day, was having a conversation with his personal secretary, Monsignor Stanislaw Dziwisz, today Cardinal Dziwisz. I have no idea why the two of them, Polish guys, were standing in front of me speaking in Italiano. I have absolutely no idea. They should be speaking in Polish, right? Not in Italiano. But so I'm right there in my uniform, you know, I'm like this Christmas tree. You know, there's nothing that I can do. You have the only father and his secretary. You're like the Christmas tree. You stay right there. You know, they talk. There is no need to be worried because nobody can come in. You don't have to salute because you already salute them. You stay there as the Christmas tree. Very quiet. And while I was there, obviously, because they are speaking my mother tongue language, I was paying attention to what they were talking about. They were not very loud, but the room was not that big, and so I was able to every single word understand it. And so all of a sudden, St. Pope John Paul II started saying to his secretary that the night before, he had a dream. And he told his secretary that in that dream, he came to a realization that a pope must lead the church with suffering. And then he said that a pope, always a pope, has to suffer so that everyone in the entire world will see that there is a higher gospel. The gospel of suffering, through which one must prepare the future. I was not really clear. Why does a pope have to suffer? What does that mean? What is this all about? Did St. Thomas talk about that? I don't think so. Maybe Bonaventure? I don't know. Who talked about that? I was confused. But I also was always extremely practical. So the Lord with me always needed to materialize certain concepts. And here it is. St. Pope John Paul II had to go to the hospital to remove a benign cancer in his intestine. He was at the hospital for a week. He comes back. When he comes back, I was in service in the courtyard of the Apostolic Palace where he arrived with his car. And all I had to do my military salute right where he arrived with the car. He will get out of the car and walk next to me into the elevator. Simple. His car was an old Mercedes convertible. And the way that the Pope will come out or go in the car was that they will have to open the roof. You know, the roof will be, clack, pushed back. So there you have the Mercedes arrive. The personal aide, the butler, comes out. The driver comes out. Monsignor Dziwisz wasn't there. They push back the roof. St. Pope John Paul II puts the right foot out, puts the left foot out, and he pushes himself out of the car. And when he comes out of the car, obviously, you know, he just had surgery. He was in the hospital for a week. He looked pale. He had definitely lost some weight, and he was weak. And that caused him to lose the balance for a moment. And when he lost the balance, he took a step toward the rear of the car, and he went against the side, you know, the back of the Mercedes. And then he put his hand down like this, unfortunately, in the same time that the personal aide, the butler, closed the door of the Mercedes. And finger number 4 and number 5 closed in. Now imagine if this gentleman, I ask him, just come right here, put number 4 and 5 fingers on the floor, and I'm going to ask Rebecca to jump on it. He's probably going to say a few words, right? To you, to me, to anybody. Instead, St. Pope John Paul II didn't say a word. He didn't complain. He didn't scream. He sucked the pain all in. When the door was reopened, you know, 1.5 seconds, and the finger came out, obviously they were fractured. He lost the nail of the 5th, a little blood. He did not say a word. He materialized the concept of suffering in front of my eyes. That's what a saint does. But at the same time, he loved to demonstrate to us his gratitude for our service. And sometimes he will do that to a point to joking around with us. Like that time that we were in Castel Gandolfo, which is the summer residence, and 4 of us, we were playing cards outside on a granite table with the benches, typical Italian situation, you know. And one and one, my partner puts down a card which is exactly the opposite of the card that I was expecting, and caused me to say a nice word. And when my word basically left my lips and went here into the cloud for a moment, patapam, the zucchetto, the cap of the Only Father, pop, arrived in the middle of our table. So we looked up, and St. Pope John Paul II there was a balcony up there. He was up there looking at us. We looked up, he put his hands up here, and he said, oops. There was no wind. There was absolutely no breeze. Or like that time instead, his personal aide, the gentleman that, you know, courageously closed his finger in the door, had 2 daughters, Cristiana and Raffaella. And because my mother tongue is Italiano, because I was a unique Swiss guard, he will engage in conversation mainly around soccer. I'm a Juventus fan, he's a Milan fan, so we were constantly, you know, poking each other, teasing each other, provoking each other. But at the same time, you know, it was my dad age, just to be clear. At the same time, he always wanted me to take either or the daughters out for a pizza. And he will always tease, you're going to marry one of my daughters. No, I'm not. No, come on, you can choose, you know, choose one of the other. No, thanks. So we were always, you know, doing something like that. Wednesday, the Pope does a general audience. Today, when there is a nice weather, he's outside in the St. Peter's Square. When the weather is not good, he's on the left side in the Aula Paolo VI, which is a big hall where 10 to 12,000 people can sit. We were inside the hall because it was torrential rain. At the end of the audience, my duty was to leave where I was and to just go at the end of the hallway where he was going to pass to then enter into the car to go back into the Apostolic Palace. Not really a security detail, just a protocol detail. So there I am. I hear the Only Father coming. Here is the first secret of the night. St. Pope John Paul II shuffled. So he didn't walk, clack, clack, clack. He walked, shh, shh, shh. Reason being, when you have Parkinson, especially at stage 1, you can't lift your feet off the ground anymore. And so the only way that you walk shuffling. And so the shuffle was for us a mechanical process that growing in intensity was signifying that he was getting closer and closer. Go up, here he is, going, down, he's gone, come down. You know, the sound was very mechanical for us. So I hear him coming, I go up in my position, and when I went up in my position, black helmet, red feather, white gloves, somebody elbows me, pump right under my sternum, that causes me to go down exactly when the Holy Father is right in line with me, and the Holy Father has to take a step, because otherwise I would have caused him like 10 stitches, you know, with the point of my helmet, okay? And then I come back up, you know, and I'm obviously containing saliva, and I'm blue, and I see on the corner of my eyes that Angelo is the one, the personal aide, the butler, is the one that elbowed me. And then, you know, I fix my glasses, and the Holy Father, Mario, there is no need to bow for me. He was a very special person, you know. He was gifted with an enormous ability to communicate. For us that had daily contact with him, you know, we were always struck by the richness of his intuitions, smart as a fox, by the depth of his spirituality, by the example of his prayerfulness, and by his immense humility that I personally believe was rooted because of his intimate union with Christ. It was for sure his humility that permitted him to continue to guide the church and to give an eloquent message even toward the end of his pontificate, when his physical strength was failing him. I was tired, I was sweaty, I didn't want to be in service anymore. I was on the 3rd floor of the Apostolic Palace, and they called me saying, the Holy Father is coming, protocol, shut down the elevator, close the door, people in the office, they're not allowed to come out, okay? And because I was tired, I was sore on my feet, there is no air conditioning in the Apostolic Palace, so your wall uniform is sticky, is smelly, you know, you gotta get out of there, all right? All I wanted it was for the Holy Father to acknowledge my existence. Even though I was like that Christmas tree, I wanted the Holy Father to stop and look at the tree, me. Maybe say a word. Maybe just do as you do in Italy. How you doing? You know, in Italy we touch each other all the time. Here we can't because, you know. But in Italy, say, hey! Everything is like that. Very open, very genuine. I'm up. I hear the noise growing in intensity. He comes. He doesn't stop. He doesn't look at me, he goes. I felt so sad. I felt so sad that I remained in attention, and I closed my eyes for maybe 2 seconds. And when I reopened my eyes, he was in front of me. I didn't hear him coming back. He was right in front of me. I'm 6'2". The Holy Father, I believe, was probably 5'9", definitely not 5'10", in between. He was right in front of me, and he was looking at me straight into my eyes. And the color of the eyes of St. Pope John Paul II were of a tone of blue that I did not identify in any other human person yet. So I'm looking at him, he looks at me. You can't talk. You know, the protocol is you don't talk. You engage if he talks. So I'm standing like that, and all of a sudden, he puts his hands in the pocket of his cassocks, and he pulls those beads out. And I'm still in my position. And he says, Mario. And when he said Mario, I came out of attention. The rosary is my favorite prayer. Marvelous in its simplicity and profundity. Take my beads. And he, I came up almost in hypnosis. And he put them into my hands. And make my beads your most powerful weapon. He closed my hand and he walked away. Since that day, I've been carrying the beads in my pocket all the time. And this is a message for the men in the room. This is an authentic symbol of manliness. Real men carry a rosary in their pocket all the time. They don't leave it on the nightstand because, the grandmother gave them to them for the first communion, and so they want to keep it there. No, they keep it on their pocket. Because this is an amazing weapon. You know how many rosary I start every day? Probably 15. If I'm lucky, I finish one. But I'm not worried, because if I don't, she will finish it for me. And I know that here you've been suffering recently. But you know what? Since 2014, I've been involved in the crisis in our church because I serve in the Vatican on a commission for the protection of children. Everything that I've seen, you have no idea. But guess what? This is my weapon. It's always with me. And guess who's going to fix the crisis in the current church? Mary. Mary will. And you know why? Here it is. When my wife tells my 15 and 13 years old Chip and Dale, I call them, Martin and Philip, go upstairs and clean your room. Go upstairs and clean your room. Go upstairs. And then she goes into the kitchen, she grabs a 13 gallons, a garbage bag, and fearless, she starts going upstairs, and you see Chip and Dale, and she goes up there, she goes into their bedroom, they share a bedroom, and she picks up socks that they've been there 6 weeks, all of this stuff. And my kids, no! And when she is done, you see a sense of joy in my boy's face like I can't describe. You know why? Because they can recognize the neatness of the room. And they can appreciate the neatness of the room. So why do I say that Mary is going to come and fix the problem? Because we, as men and women, we fell in our commitment. Not just the clergy. We all fell. And she's going to come and she's going to clean up the mess for us. As a Swiss Guard, as a former Swiss Guard, I will always encourage anybody to call on Mary. Call on Mary. Because she will turn you from a pessimist into an optimist. She will turn you from being timid to being daring. She will turn you from being feeble-spirited to being a man or a woman of faith. Saint Pope John Paul II, the longer he prayed, the more absorbed in the prayer he became until he was completely taken up in it, as if nothing or no one in the room could pull him back from the place where he had gone. Castel Gandolfo, summer residence. The Pope used to go there for 2 months during summer, but he will also go there a few days after Christmas and after Easter just to rest. And we, as guard, we will go with him. This happened after an Easter break. So there is no uniform. We are there with suit and jeans and tennis shoes. And 3 in the afternoon, somebody comes, brings a folder full of documents. There are no janitors in the palace. It's just few guards. The only father is secretary, 1 nun of ours to cook a meal for us. We will live like in a community, like you do in your dorms. We will share a space. So there is this folder with those documents in it, and I'm thinking, okay, it's 3 o'clock. Should I take it upstairs? Should I keep it here? Well, maybe I'll take it upstairs. I don't think that the only father is around. He's probably resting. Maybe he's in his office. Well, because I didn't have the uniform, so I didn't make a lot of noise, you know, with the sword and everything. So I started going upstairs, and I thought, I'm going to go to the dining room at the end of the hallway. I knew the apartment quite well, obviously. I'm just going to put it there next to the couch on the coffee table so that him or Monsignor Givic, they're going to go in and blah, blah, blah. When I was walking down, doors on the left side, windows on the right side into the courtyard. So I knew what's behind every single door. And when I arrived halfway down the hallway, that's where the chapel was. And that's where we would go to Mass with him at 7 in the morning. And so when I arrived there, don't ask me why, but I kind of, slowed down, and I turned and I did a little bow as a sign of respect. But when I turned and I did a little bow, when I came up, what did I see? 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the chapel, which is very small, 2 pews on the left side, 2 pews, an open space in the middle, and in the middle there was a chair with a small kneeler with red velvet pillow, where the Holy Father sometime will kneel, okay? And the altar, very small. St. Pope John Paul II was kneeling next to the kneeler, in this tiny space between the small kneeler and the pew. He was kneeling there. With his left hand, he was grabbing the kneeler, the part of the kneeler where usually you put the book. He was grabbing it. And the right hand was against the altar, a granite slab. And his forehead was resting behind the back of his hand. Can you picture this? Kneeling down, grabbing, resting. So when I saw that, I thought, I took a step. I looked inside because I thought they're probably, doing a documentary. Maybe they're taking pictures, posing. There was absolutely nobody in that room. And that's the only time in my entire life that I felt the bone marrow go up and come down in my spine. Like we do in New Hampshire when we do maple syrup, that the sap goes up the trees and then comes down the trees, and we poke so that we can suck it out to make maple syrup. I took a step back, I turned right, and I went down to the living room. Put down the folder, and when I turned around and I passed where the chapel was, I did not stop. I didn't even dare to look inside again. 8 o'clock, same day, 5 hours later. Monsignor Civic calls and says, the Holy Father wants to go for a walk, which meant, very simple. We are inside the Villa Pontificia. There are walls that are 150 feet tall. Nobody comes inside. There is the army outside around. So we go out, and as I said at the beginning, Swiss Guard means bodyguards. It's like being the Secret Service over here. So when you go and walk with the Holy Father, you have somebody that walks right next to him, which is called the first ring, and somebody that walks second rings, which is either 25 feet in advance or 25 feet behind. I was second ring in advance. Jeans, a jacket, tennis shoes. We are walking, done that walk several other times, very familiar. And about 6 or 7 minutes into the walk, I remembered, I was kind of leading the track. I remembered that there was a little fountain, and I thought, for sure he's going to go and see there are fishes inside. And so when we arrived there, I talked, and they said, I'm going to pull, So I stopped to the side, which means the guys next to the Holy Father, they arrived, and then, because the fountain was, let's say, where the tree is, they also stopped still on the track, okay, so that the Holy Father will go over there. And as a matter of fact, the Holy Father took 3 steps to go in that direction, but then he stopped. And then he turned around, and he saw where I was, and he started walking straight toward me. Panic attack. You know why? Because when you have a uniform, and you are a military, you know exactly what to do with your hands, right? But when you are wearing a suit, what the heck are you going to do with your hands? You're going to go position? What are you going to do with your hands? Stay like this, like a bozo? No, I don't think so. So while I was still trying to get something that obviously wasn't coming, he arrived in front of me. And I had my hands down. He grabbed firm my left wrist, not my right, my left, with his right hand. And he pulled. And when he pulled, caused me, to go down a little. And when I went down, I went with my right ear right next to his mouth. You go down, I didn't want to break his nose, so I went to the side, okay? And when I went next to his mouth, he whispered in Italian, Mario, why don't you join me next time with your weapon? And he got up, turned, and walked away. How the heck did he know that I saw him praying in the chapel? How the heck he wants me to join him in prayer with my rosary? There's no space in that chapel. I was really caught off guard. That is when I realized that something has to change in my behavior. I got to understand a little bit more who this man really is. And so that's when I fell madly in love, so to speak. I started paying attention to every single thing he said. I was watching his posture, his look, if he would caress a child, if we would reprimand a nun. I will pay attention to everything that he wrote. I tried to read it, even though most of the time it was way above my level of understanding. But I know for sure, because I personally witnessed that true joy for St. Pope John Paul II, it was not a mere passing emotion. True joy for St. Pope John Paul II was an achievement, was coming as a consequence of having met Jesus Christ, who is true joy and true love. And it was through his witness that I was continually exhorted to serve others as Christ did. That's why I accepted to join Catholic University, even though I am all but an academic. I think by now you got it. In my class, we have a lot of fun. I witness that serving others means being like him, who himself came not to be served, but to serve. And who confirmed this to me? Another saint that I was blessed and honored to know, and she knew my name very, very, very well, Mother Teresa. But let me tell you this funny anecdote with Mother Teresa. The first time I met Mother Teresa, I was in trouble, which means as a Swiss Guard, when you are in trouble, you have to get community service hours. And community service hours means you go to the soup kitchen that the Missionary of Charity run just outside the colonnade. I've been there many times, so I knew exactly what to do, where everything was. That specific day, I did not want to serve food. So I decided to stay in the kitchen and wash pots. But I didn't really, my hands, I was complaining because there was no hot water. And so I was washing everything with cold waters. And they didn't really have good detergent, but, this kind of soap that actually didn't really do much. So you had to scrub hard. And I was really fighting with this pot that it's for you the equivalent of a pot that you do fried turkey. Have you ever, those parts that outside you fry the turkey in? They're not shiny usually, but they get really black, which means when you clean them, you have to use the little, steel, and I was working really hard, but nothing was getting off. So I started complaining, and then I turned the pot and water came out, spilled on me, got my jeans, my underwear soaking wet. I started really, losing it. And at that moment, this little nun that I didn't really recognize, because the missionary of charity, they all look alike, for crying out loud. They're all the same height, dressed alike. You can't really decode them, okay? So she had just arrived. She was pushing a cart, and she was taking glasses off that cart to put in a tray next to me in the sink. So I had to wash those. And when I said, enough, and I threw the pot into the sink, I turned around, and Mother Teresa, I don't know if any of you has ever had the honor to, no, you were not born yet, but Mother Teresa was 4'9", and she had the voice of a lady that smoked 6 packs of Camel a day. Very low. And she was extremely powerful. I've seen Mother straighten out anybody, chief of states. She was fearless. So when I threw the pot and I finally turned around, I looked at her. I immediately recognized her. She looked at me, and I'm going to translate it in English now, but she told me in Italian. She says, wow, you're really acting like a sissy. To me, a sissy, for crying out loud. I almost grabbed the pan and covered her with the pen. My first encounter with Mother, with a saint. She called me a sissy. A few weeks go by. I read on the protocol that Mother was coming. And so I prepared myself, and I said, she's coming in my territory right now. I have my uniform. This is my place. I'm going to prove who's a sissy here. So she arrived. She were in the midst of other sisters. They went in with the Holy Father. I'm outside with few other guards. Then the other guards leave. Finally, they all come out, and Mother was not with them. And I'm thinking, come on, where is she? Well, she had stayed inside still with St. Pope John Paul II. So another 20, 25 minutes, she finally comes out. And when she comes out, I'm ready. I'm going to go. I'm going to give it to her. I'm going to go and tell her, look who's the sissy. And when I got there, the first thing that shocked me was this immense smell, essence, that was a combination of 3 things. Coconut oil, eucalyptus, and vanilla. And that, what the heck is this smell? And while I kind of went back for a moment, then I'm coming, I'm going to give it to you. When I went back there, Mother obviously saw me. We hadn't talked yet. I didn't really started my relationship with her yet. So she looks at me. She had a stole. You know how the habit of the sisters are. So she pulled a little, and here she had a diaper pin, those boppy pin, and she had a miraculous medal. You know what a miraculous medal is. So she opened it. She took the miraculous medal. She fixed it. And then she comes to me and she says, this is for you, sissy. I lost that medal. I lost that medal. I was so sad, but 1 year, almost to the clock, mothers arrive. I'm still in service, and I read that they're there. You never know that Mother is there. Group of missionary of charities. You don't know if she's in the midst of the group or not. There she is. I haven't seen her for dead here. I have not seen her or talked. So they come, the Holy Father comes out, they talk, blah, 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 singing, the usual things, and then the Holy Father leaves, and so there were 6 or 7 guards, and we were trying, you know, nuns are really mean, by the way. You know, it's very hard to control a flock of nuns. They move like wasp, like sheeps. You know, you block 3, 7 are right there. What the heck is going on? They all have umbrellas. Boom! Ah, you know, it's brutal. It's brutal. Especially if they want to go into the first row, okay? Even though they have the ticket from the row number 737, they got to go to first row, okay? And you can't stop them. So they are getting dressed, you know, we are looking at them, and all of a sudden they turn, they start walking, and the few guards, I think 4 or 5, you know, we stayed in the room because we were going to depart from a different direction, and all of a sudden, one of the sisters turns and start walking back. And we look at each other and thinking, that when he came closer, it was clear it was Mother. And when she came back, you know, we were 4, almost the same height, 2 with glasses, 2 without, 2 with glasses, 2 without. She came right in front of me, out of the 4 that we were left. She came right, she looked, 4'9". She moves her habit, opens, takes a miraculous medal out, closes, fix it. She comes like this. I have no idea why. I went like this with my hand. She put the medal, she closed my fist, and she says, "This time, don't lose it." How the heck did she know? Now you understand, in conclusion. He definitely impacted my young life in profound ways, you know, laying the groundwork for my becoming a husband, becoming a father, becoming a banker, an investment banker for 20 years, and today a professor at Catholic University, but most important, a practicing Catholic. It was definitely his example that inspired me. It was definitely his words that gave me hope. And it was definitely his ideas that provided direction to my life. Here is the last story. Apostolic Palace. Somehow I have to deliver something. And I arrive, I knock, I open the door, and here I am in his office, which is where they celebrate the Angelus, the second window. Today, Pope Francis also uses that just for the Angelus, because Pope Francis doesn't live there, okay? So there I am, standing with whatever is in my hand, looking at him writing. Here is the second secret. I told you about the shuffling. Here is the second secret. Saint Pope John Paul II, any chance he had, always used the same pen. He carried it. If he didn't have it, his secretary had it. A Mont Blanc. I don't know if some of you know what a Mont Blanc is. It's a wonderful pen. Gold, white gold. And that specific day, he was writing, and he had the calligraphy of a third grade teacher, you know. And he was writing, and I'm there standing, and he's writing, and I'm there standing, and he's writing, and he's not paying attention to me. And behind him, there was this pendulum that I was looking at, you know, that you pull the chain, you know, the weight, they go up to charge it at night. So I'm looking at there, you know, 5 minutes go by, and he's writing, and I'm standing there like the tree. And then when the 7 minute went by, I clear my throat, and His Holiness finished a word, kept the Mont Blanc on the page, looked up, Mario, patience is a virtue, and went back writing. I felt this big. My boss just reprimanded me. And when he went back writing, I noticed it, that under his left hand, he had a book. And so I thought, I wonder if he's writing something about that book. Now, you understand, I was stalking the guy by that time, and so I really wanted to understand and see what that book was. Well, I couldn't, I didn't want to move, so all I could see was Tolstoy. But I was extremely intrigued by the fact that, I don't know if any of you has ever read Tolstoy. Tolstoy books are bricks, are this big. That book was this big. And so I thought, wait a second, does the Holy Father read Sparks notes? Because we as teacher, we don't know when you read Sparks note. We have no idea. We can't understand when you read Sparks notes, Or especially when you read in Vistopedia and then you do past and copy and we get the email and it's blue, you read the past that students do, and no, we don't know those, we don't see those things, We've never done them before, okay? And so I'm trying to really see the title of the book. Finally, he looks up and he says, yes, see. And so I took the step. I went with that little box that I had, enough that he picked up his hand, and I saw the title of the book. I didn't have Amazon Prime at that time. So all I did was, as soon as I finished, I went to the Libreria Vaticana and I ordered the book in Italiano because the book was in Italiano. And took about 2.5 weeks to arrive. And the title of the book was, in English, The Death of Ivan Ilyich. The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which is one of the last novels that Tolstoy wrote. One of the last ones. 76 pages. I read it very quickly. I understood zero. I was extremely upset. So I decided to carry the book during the service, and every chance I had to take it out and read it. Only 76 pages, the edition that I have, stayed in my pocket. And here he comes. Holy Father is coming. I hear it, so instead of putting the book back into my pocket, I put it on the windowsill behind me. And the Holy Father comes up in my attention. There are 2 or 3 of them. The people, they turn, they go into the elevator. The Holy Father turns, sees me, and starts talking. I never had conversation about St. Thomas with St. Pope John Paul II. We didn't go into transcendental analysis of Bonaventure in comparison. We didn't go that way. We talk about futile stuff, simple stuff. He asked me a few things, I don't remember what, and then he saw the book. He didn't know that I was reading the book because I saw him reading it. He had no idea, or at least I think so. So he grabbed the book. I still have that book. And he did, 2 or 3 times with his finger. And then he looked at me and he said, while still doing that, he said, Mario, this book is about many things. This book, is about the terrible spots of the human heart. This book is about the primacy of death. But this book is about the consequences of living without meaning. Because meaning is the truth. Then he gave me back the book and he said, Mario, always be for the whole truth, even when it hurts. He turned around and walked away. You understand now that spending time with him, as I said, made me desire what he had. I'm still trying to get this, like this, next to him. And in conclusion of my evening, and I'm sorry if I went too long, but I would like to share with you at least 2 or 3 guidelines that I took personally as leadership tools, something that I put in my toolbox. And they are still extremely important in my daily life, as a husband, or as a professor, or as a consultant, or whatever. The first one that I took from him, don't waste time. You can't waste time, my friends. You should not be wasting time. Instead, make yourself useful. Make yourself felt. Shine with the torch of your faith. Independently, if once you graduate, you're going to become a beggar at a grocery store, or if you're going to win the Nobel Prize because of the script that DRA is composing today. Don't waste time. The second one that I took is to pay attention to the little things. Pay attention to the little things. You know, in the business world, where soon some of you will land, it's an important quality. Unfortunately, many people my age are wrapped up in their own world that they despise the little things. If you pay attention to the little things, you'll first become a master of yourself, and then you become a leader for others. But you know why it's important to focus on the little things? Because guess who hides in the little things? The devil. The devil hides in the little things. This is a business guy that tells you, trust me, he hides right there. And if you don't pay attention, devil 1, Rebecca 0. Number 3, embrace sacrifice. Learn how to sacrifice. Because anything that you will do, a vocation, a mission, a vocation specifically, obviously requires self-denial, demands self-denial. But trust me, it is immensely pleasant, the return that you'll get from sacrificing. Embrace sacrifice. Do not be afraid. 2 more. Care for others. Don't be selfish. We live in a selfish society. One of the things that unfortunately daily I tell my students, you are white, you are Catholic, they want to kill you. They are out there to get us. It's brutal out there, guys. It is extremely hard. That should stimulate us to care and pray for others even more. Somebody offends you, pray for them. Somebody insults you, pray for them. Care for others. Care for others. Try daily to increase your concern for others. For your boss or for your employee. For your students, your co-students, or your teachers, care for others. And the last one, persevere. Do not give up. Do not give up. Persevere, because when least you will expect it, the darkness will vanish and the light will return. A phrase that I heard St. Pope John Paul II say several times was, be more. May all of you students of St. John Paul the Great University learn how to be more. You don't need to learn or to be worried how to make more, how to do more. Learn how to be more, first and foremost. We all together tonight, we must receive this condition of self-living and self-giving as an absolute, essential code of conduit for an authentic Christian leadership. Be more. And as David's charge to Solomon in the first book of Kings, chapter 2, verse 1 to 4, he charged him before he died. And this is the end of my presentation. And I quote, I am going the way all. Take courage and be a man. Keep the mandate of the Lord your God, following his ways and observing his statutes, his ordinance, and his decrees. End of the quote. My boss, St. Pope John Paul II, did this. May the Lord help you to be more. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mario, for your time and for sharing these stories and for showing us a little more clearly what holiness looks like. Yeah, this means a lot to us, and it certainly inspired me to be more. So as we close this time, let's close in prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We pray, glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Saint Pope John Paul II. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.